Hey guys, and welcome to another video taking a look at the new content from update 17. In this video we're going to be taking a look at a weapon from the depths of Tilrigor's Sea Labs, the new primary harpoon gun, the Harpak. Now, the Harpak's the latest addition to the market blueprint weapons and is a burst fire weapon, firing 3 rounds at a time, doing an okay 50 damage a shot, with the majority 37.5 coming in the form of puncture, 5 as impact, 7.5 as slash. Not only does it have this primary burst fire, it's also got a secondary fire where it fires a harpoon that will pull targets down to the floor, very similar to the Parasist. In fact, this weapon pretty much plays as a Grineer version of the Parasist. The playstyle is actually very similar. But in addition to these features, the Harpak comes with a reasonable 15% crit chance, 200% multiplier, pretty average 10% status, and a pretty decent magazine size of 45, meaning a decent 15 bursts before needing to do a reload, which at 2 seconds is actually not that bad at all. The general accuracy of the weapon itself is pretty decent, and the harpoon shot is itself 100% accurate, and has a 100% guaranteed puncture proc, and does the full damage of a single shot of the primary fire. However, the decent accuracy leads me onto a major problem with the Harpak, and that is the insane amount of vertical recoil that the weapon has. Which means that if you're not a person that deals with recoil management much, or like myself I forget to do it in the heat of battle a lot, it really does mean that you very rarely hit the same spot twice with the same burst. This can be mitigated by dragging down on your mouse slightly to counteract the vertical recoil, or even can be modded for with mods like Stabilizer. In addition to that, the projectile travel speed can feel fairly slow, and does mean that a certain amount of skill is needed to properly lead targets, especially at that longer range. Although this really does limit this weapon to being a short to medium range weapon, purely because of that travel time. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Harpak. Now it does come with a V polarity as standard, however we're going to add another 5 former, which is going to be 2 Vs and 3 dashes. And we've got a whole bunch of mods remaining the same between the 3 builds. Serration for damage, split chamber for multi-shot. We've got Shred, which is going to give extra fire rate as well as the punch through that we need on the weapon. And we've got Vile Acceleration, which is also going to increase the fire rate on the weapon, but it is going to lose a little bit of damage. But the extra fire rate for me makes up for that, and these two combined make a very nice combo on here. And we've also got Stabilizer, which I am going to talk a little bit later on about, but this really does make the weapon feel so much more usable for me. Now in terms of damage, we've only got really room for 3 elementals left. So we've got in the Grineer build, Hellfire and Stormbringer for radiation, and Toxin, which is going to really focus on taking on the heavy units through things like the Bombards. For the Corpus, we've got Cryoround, Stormbringer and Infected Clip, which is going to bring up Magnetic and Toxic. And in the Void, we've got Infected Clip, Stormbringer and Hellfire for corrosive and heat damage. Obviously, if you're using corrosive projection, you can switch things around a bit, and then you've got viral and heat. And this will be probably the best for your corrosive projection build in the Void. So do I think it's worth the time, effort and resources to max it? And the answer is, I honestly don't know. Look, normally I can work out whether I like a weapon fairly early on, before all the former is done. Sometimes even before I've done any former. Honestly, even after nearly all the former was done on this thing, I still couldn't work out if I liked it or not. Funnily enough, even when I'd done all the former on this, I was still tweaking the build. I really couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. In the end, I settled on this build. And honestly, I started to have fun with it again, rather than being frustrated by not knowing how I wanted to mod it. I actually find it quite fun to play now. Now I've found how I like to mod it. And I can recommend for the fact that it is fun. But the other burst fire weapons, things like the Tiburon or the Sybaris, they just do it better, quite frankly. Now I know I'm going to get a few comments of lol Stabilizer, learn to control recoil noob. Which, okay, fair enough, but while I don't mind doing that on things like Counter-Strike, Battlefield, it doesn't work for me in Warframe, because in those other 2 games you're not firing 1,000,000 rounds an hour, controlling literally every single burst. I don't find that fun. I don't find it particularly efficient, because no matter how good you are at recoil control, you're still unlikely to do it for every single burst. Stabilizer means I can take advantage of the fire rate from Shred and Vile Acceleration, without having to worry about missing half of my magazine. And on the topic of those fire rate on burst fire weapons, I felt that the Harpak, with the Harpak, the time between the bursts was far too slow, so putting on the shred and vial acceleration on there really counteracted that, and if you click fast enough now, it can actually feel like a fully automatic weapon, really pushing the damage output of the Harpak. Now in terms of modding it differently, you could go with heavy caliber if you wanted. Personally, I find it far too inaccurate, so I steered way clear of that. Obviously you could switch out stabilizer for another elemental if you wanted, or if you want to use the Harpoon at all, you're going to have to change shred out because the punch through breaks the Harpoon completely. I personally don't use the Harpoon anywhere near enough for me to not use shred. I can see how people are going to use it to pull heavy units down to lessen incoming damage, but for personally, just for me, the range is far too low, and the loss of that punch through is too much of a hit for me to actually consider it worth it. Now this is all down to personal preference. I never mod for the absolute most damage a weapon can put out. I mod for the optimum amount of damage, along with usability to make the weapon actually as efficient at killing as possible. The most amount of damage on paper is not always the best way to mod a weapon. So the Harpak, the Grineer Harpoon gun. Decent accuracy, reasonable damage, but with heavy vertical recoil. Modded properly, this thing can be a lot of fun to play with. Never going to challenge the Tiburon or Cerberus, but fun nonetheless. As always guys, many thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for more Update 17 content, and I shall see you in the next episode.